Hi, it's Olga from SEO Sly. Welcome to SEO podcast by SEO Sly. So this is our weekly edition with experts, SEO experts. So our today's guest is a very special one. This is Jason Barnard. So I'm very, very happy and excited to have Jason. Hello, Jason.
Hi, Olga. I've been saying it wrong all the time. I was saying SEOsly, but it's SEO Sly.
There are like two pronunciations. When I first started my website, I thought SEO it would be like seriously, so sales, yeah. And then
that's genius. I hadn't noticed, but that's genius.
Then someone said it's better if you like associate it with being as sly as a fox. So then I thought, okay, SEO Sly.
Right. Oh, that's genius too, and I hadn't seen that either. I was wondering SEO sleep. I was thinking that's kind of quite difficult to say, but SEO Sly is brilliant, and seriously is even better.
any pronunciation is okay. So Jason, I've been your fan for a very long time. If there is someone on earth who doesn't know you, can you like briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, I'm Jason Barnard right now. I call myself the brand SERP guy, and I coined the term brand SERP 10 years ago maybe, and just working on what appears when somebody Googles your personal name or your brand name. I'm astonished that 25 years into the internet, nobody else has actually focused on this quite that much. So I built Kalicube, the company, Kalicube Pro, the SaaS platform, with my own two little hands. And I talk only about knowledge panels and brand SERPs and bore people senseless with it all the time, including my daughter who just walks out the room.
So she's also like interested in that topic?
No, she loves Thomas Hardy. So when she talks about Thomas Hardy, I walk out of the room. And when I talk about knowledge panels and brand SERPs, she walks out of the room.
Okay, I get it now. Okay, so how many years have you been into SEO? I know some of your story, but if you can, like in a nutshell, tell me when you started.
Yeah, well, I started in 1998, the same year Google was incorporated. And they were incorporated in September, and I was building my first Macromedia Flash website that I published in December 1998. So they beat me by 4 months. So Google was incorporated 4 months before I actually launched the website. And one of the things that I did, it was either lucky or smart, I don't really know which, is at the time you had all these different search engines, Excite, Magdalene, whatever it was called, Yahoo, which now still exists. Hotbot, Excite, I said that one already. I can't remember the other ones.
I remember Alta Vista only, I think.
Alta Vista. Oh, and the one with the dog, that had a black dog, Lycos. And we would create an individual page for each keyword and each variant of that keyword, including plurals. And each machine, each algorithm had a different weighting of words you needed. So for every keyword, you would have to create the keyword, the variant, and that times 15 different search engines. So we ended up with like 15,000 HTML pages to manage for the different search engines, the different keywords. And then I thought, this is such a waste of time. And I just thought, well, I'll do it for one, do it for Google. And if it works for the other, that's great. And if it doesn't, I don't care. And it turned out to be a hugely, hugely good bet. And we just built pages for Google from there on in, and it turns out to have been quite successful. And 25 years later, I'm still working on Google. And me and Google, we've had this kind of parallel path, but they've obviously done a bit better than I have. But it's been fun. Wow,
that's nice. I remember you were, if I remember correctly, you were living in this island, Mauritius, for some time. Mauritius. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yep. Well, the website was actually a blue dog and a yellow koala. And we built games for kids, and I wrote songs, and we did animations for kids, and it was super fun. And it ended up being the 10,000th biggest site in the world.
Wow.
And we were beating Disney and PBS all over the place. It was really phenomenally successful.
Wow.
And we were living in Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, building this massively successful website from a tropical island sitting on the beach. It was brilliant.
That's amazing, really. And you were doing it like before it was even like, I would say, popular to work like from a distant place. hot place.
Well, I remember it was before that big the internet bubble, the first one, before it burst in 1999. Everyone's saying you can work from anywhere, you can go and live on a tropical island and still build a website. Yeah. And I just thought, I'm going to do that. That sounds like a good idea. And in 2000, in January 2000, we moved to Mauritius and set up the company there and set up a team of animators and developers and content creators and built this massive website. It was super.
That's amazing, really. Okay, so like, what's your specialty now? So this is like knowledge panels, and like, can you tell me more about this?
Yeah, knowledge panels are kind of fashionable at the moment. And so people talk to me a lot about knowledge panels, but for me, knowledge panel is simply a subset of the brand SERP. The brand SERP is what your audience sees when they Google your personal name or your brand name. And on desktop, you can really easily define the two sides. You've got the right rail, which is the knowledge panel, which is Google My Business. And you've got the left rail, which is all the blue links and the videos and so on and so forth. The right rail is fact. The left rail is opinion and recommendations from Google. So if you look at it from that perspective, for me, we've got this brand SERP that we need to manage and control. And you can optimize the left-hand side. So you can optimize what Google's recommending to your audience, and you can manage the facts that it understands and it puts in the right rail.
Wow, that's a very, very powerful way of like looking at it. Yeah, that's
I've been
great.
thinking about this for a long time.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so like, what's the Kalicube there then? Can you like tell me more about it? I know this is a unique name, so that this brand name is not like used by anyone else. So I assume that there aren't any other results but yours when I type Kalicube.
Yeah, we've actually done a couple of case studies. We have a client called Backpacker Job Board, which is a generic name. And then we have Kalicube, which is a unique name. And so we've done a case study of each to see what the different problems are when you're managing a unique name against when you're managing a generic name like Backpacker Job Board. And what they've done at Backpacker Job Board is absolutely dominate that space and become associated entity-wise with companies like Indeed, huge companies. And so what they've managed to do is make the term Backpacker Job Board, which is their brand name, basically themselves. And it's hugely difficult to do. And Matthew Hayes is the guy who did it. Absolutely brilliant piece of work. And he had this choice is, do I compete and try to dominate my own brand name when it's generic and therefore dominate my market? Or do I switch names and rebrand and start again to make it easy for myself to dominate just my brand SERP? And he picked the hard route. I picked the easy route. Brilliant.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, SEO Sly.
Yeah, I was thinking about just SEO blog. Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if it was called SEO blog, then it would be fundamentally difficult for you to optimize the left rail and manage the right rail. When you've got something unique, it becomes much, much easier. The disadvantage, of course, is if you think about it as a crowd, is that if you create your own unique name, you have to break away from the crowd and get the crowd to follow you so that they end up Googling your brand name.
Yeah,
you've got to create a new crowd. Whereas if you choose a generic name, you're in the middle of the crowd and you just got to get to the front of the crowd and lead the crowd. Obviously, that's a very bad analogy, but it gives you an idea of the different options you have. And it's very difficult to get to the front of the crowd and get the crowd to follow you. It's easy to leave the crowd, but it's very difficult to get members of the crowd to then follow you.
Yeah,
so those are the debates. And I've been thinking about that a long time as well. And we chose Kalicube as a name because we wanted a unique name. And somebody asked me the other day, why is it called Kalicube? What does it mean? And for me, Kali is quality and Cube is solid and reliable. So it's quality, solid and reliable. And then the falcon is a colorful, fun icon of a bird that flies. So you've got this quality and solidity that flies. And in my mind, that all makes sense, but I think it probably only makes sense to me.
Yeah, it does. It does make a lot of sense, of course.
Yeah, I think about this a lot as well.
Okay, so that's the name, but like, what does Kalicube really do? Like, who's behind? What are the features? Because you have Kalicube Pro, right? Can you tell me more about this?
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't answer the question at all, did I? We've got multiple offers. One of which is a book, Brand SERPs for Business, which is for beginners, and then we've got an academy, which is for intermediate people who know a little bit about digital marketing and/or SEO. You don't need to know about SEO to follow the course.
Sorry to interrupt. The book, you mean the book you are selling on Amazon? You launched some time ago. This book.
That book, exactly.
Okay.
And I'm in Oxford right now in the university libraries writing a second book about knowledge panels, which I hope to release in the next couple of months. Then we've got the academy, which I just mentioned, and we're about to launch the knowledge panel course. 5 hours of video recorded, done. We're just preparing it for launch, and it shares everything I've figured out about knowledge panels over the last 10 years. And I'm really excited about that because I learned loads from writing it and recording it. Because every time I looked at something, I thought, do I know that or do I just think it? And if I realized I just thought it was a theory, I went in and looked at the data in the Kalicube database. We've got 500 million data points.
Wow.
And checked whether what I was thinking was true was in fact true. So a lot of it is intuition and then going in and checking with the data. And then the third one is the Kalicube Pro SaaS platform, which is where the 500 million data points come from. And I've been collecting brand SERPs and knowledge panels in a database for since 2017, and it's really geeky. And once you start digging into the data, it's really scary how much time you can spend looking at all these different things that don't mean anything to anybody and aren't necessarily helpful. But every now and then you find a little gem, a little nugget, and you think that's important, that's helpful, and it's pragmatic and helpful to managing that factual message that Google's putting in the right rail. And the platform is agency only. So you have to be an agency to use it. We've got onboarding, we've got training, we've got sessions where we train people up, because it's actually, I thought it was really easy, but it's actually apparently more difficult than I give it credit for, not because it's a difficult process, but because there's so many moving parts that you need to control. And I think from my perspective, what I now realize is that I really have to get people on board. A lady called Elisa, who runs the Kalicube Pro team, on boards with me. And there are 3 people in the world who really understand the platform. Coincide, who just wrote a 25,000 word review about it. It's a book published as a WordPress article. It's nuts. 25,000 words he managed to write, and he found every nook and cranny, every little thing that you can do with the platform, and managed to write 25,000 words. And he still kind of didn't put everything in. And then Elisa, who runs the Kalicube team, who uses it better than I do, which is delightful to have somebody on my team who actually does a better job than I do with something I built, and me, obviously. And now we're trying to get other agencies on board, WordLift, Site Strategics, and getting an SMA marketing guy called Ryan Shelley, who's absolutely brilliant as well, and getting them on board and getting them managing knowledge panels in an efficient and effective way.
Okay, so if I am like, I'm not an agency, but kind of a company that is run by 2 people, can I be using Kalicube Pro?
Yeah. There's no limit to numbers in terms of how many people use it.
Like, you have to be an agency, a company, right?
You need to want to use it on multiple clients. That's the point.
That's the
point. You
can't
just come on as an individual and say, I want to use it, because it takes me so long to onboard people that it turns out not to be worth our time. And for one person doing one entity, managing their knowledge panel with their brand SERP, it's way too much time to invest for one individual for one entity. So if you're going to invest the time to learn the platform, you need to know that you're going to be working on 10 entities or 20 entities. So that's what I mean by agency. I don't mean you have to have 15 people in your team. I mean you have to have 10 clients,
15
for whom this is going to be useful. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, can you tell me more about your team? Like, because from my understanding, Kalicube is Jason, but I know that there are more people. So,
yeah, we've had a few team meetings over the last few weeks and come to the conclusion that, as you say, people think Kalicube, that's just Jason. And I've had comments that my personal social media communication is amazing, and the answer is no, it's not. it's Joanne and Joanna and previously Marianne who do all of that, and they do it brilliantly. And that's the Kalicube social media team. And they do all the work. It's not me, which is logical for a company. And so it's made us now realize that I've had a team for about a year now, a little over a year, that it's important that we communicate. The Kalicube is a company with a team. I'm the founder and CEO, but it isn't just me. And the team behind Kalicube is doing massive amounts of brilliant work. And A, deserve the credit, and B, it helps us also present Kalicube as a real company and not just Jason. And so I can name all the members. There's 13 people plus me. There's Anton Schulke, who you know.
Oh, so Anton is on your team as well.
Yeah, he helps out with the
I'm going to have him on the show too. Manager. Yeah, that's great.
So I consider him part of the team, although he obviously works for Duda. My ex-wife, Veronique, who does all of the design, who's absolutely brilliant. She gave us a idiot-proof color sheet, and it's got all the hex colors that we're allowed to use. And basically, you can mix them up in any way you want, and it always looks pretty, so you can't mess it up.
Oh, that's interesting.
And she does templates for everything. And basically, she provides us and our team, we're not necessarily good at design, with idiot-proof kind of assets that we can put together anywhere we want. And as long as we follow the simple rules she gives us, everything's okay.
That's great.
Yeah. And then Joanne running the social media team with Joanna. Marianne, who's moved from the social media team now, does a lot of design and is going to be working on press and press releases and communications and the customer journey. And Katrina, who's working on the marketing funnel. Lisa, who runs Kalicube Pro team, and we actually have Kalicube Pro for agencies, and we also do a done for you service, and she runs both of those. So if somebody comes to us and said, I've got one entity, we can do that entity for you. And Elisa does it, and she's absolutely brilliant. So you've got no worries. She's going to get you a knowledge panel. We did this for Jason Hennessy, merged 3 knowledge panels, got him 4 social media profiles, a description, and knowledge panel cards, and it was absolutely stunning. I mean, he's so happy. We did a case study on that, so visit kalicube.com to read the case studies. Faith running the academy. She's a pedagogue rather than a digital person, so she's really approaching the academy from a pedagogical point of view and keeps telling me, Jason, it's too geeky. And then she puts these slides up that make it all much, much clearer, and she's right, and I'm 100% on board with that. Then we've got Maria, who runs the Kalicube Tuesdays events, all of our events with the guests and my guesting, who's wonderful as well. Jean Marie, who does all the internal content, the link building. She's the knowledge of all the content we've got, because we've created so much content now that we need somebody who actually knows it all. She works with a lady called Marie Rose, who's just come on board, who's helping her and will probably join the Kalicube Pro team. Nell, who's on the Kalicube Pro team as well. And Christine, who does the transcripts and prepares lots of the stuff for the social media and the sharing. And the transcripts are really there for helping Google to understand all of the different things that we do in video and podcasting, to create text from all of this audio, because obviously Google remains text-based principally. And so that's the helping hand it gets. And Christine basically just makes sure Google's fully understood what it is we've said.
And do you have like an SEO, a dedicated SEO person, or is it like that each member or some of your team members have some SEO knowledge, and like, do you do SEO?
No, well, in fact, nobody in the company knew anything about digital marketing or SEO when they started. So everybody comes on board and learns the way that we've been doing it, the Kalicube process, and there's an article on kalicube.com about that explains exactly how it works, and it's not SEO driven. SEO for me is simply a way to package things for Google. It's principally marketing and branding, and SEO comes third as the way of packaging that marketing and that branding for Google. So I would consider myself now not so much an SEO, but more of a brander and a marketer who uses SEO techniques, because I've been doing SEO for so long.
Okay, I get it. Can you tell me now more, because you mentioned academy, like who can sign up? Is it like free for everyone? Like, what can I learn there?
Oh, that's a really good question from the perspective of we're about to release a PDF download of the 17-point checklist for how to get a knowledge panel and how to manage a knowledge panel.
Wow.
And the 17 points are actually relatively simple. You just need to go through the process and you're almost certain to get a knowledge panel if you do it correctly and you really apply yourself to it. And then we've got maybe 2,000 articles across the different sites that Kalicube runs. And if you want to do all of this for free, get all of that information for free, it's all out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you want something structured, the course is for you. There's obviously some things in the course that we haven't shared yet, or we may well never share. But basically, you don't need all the stuff in the course. The course will be for somebody who's saying, well, I want to upgrade and become more proficient in brand SERP optimization and knowledge panel management. But basically, we're sharing everything we learn, because I believe, if you think about it, brand SERPs and knowledge panels, everybody needs it. Every company needs it. That's 20 billion potential clients for Kalicube. There is no way I can serve 20 billion potential clients. So I might as well just let everybody else get on with it and say, here's how we do it. If you want to follow that process, come along, you're welcome. Read the Kalicube process article, search on Google for what is the Kalicube process, and it will tell you, obviously. And then you can work through that on your own using the free resources, absolutely no problem at all. And the idea for me is the book is a nice thing to sit and read in bed and get the overall concept. It's the summation of the concept and the strategies that we use. And if you want to upgrade, use the courses to learn more about it. If you want to manage multiple brand sets, multiple knowledge panels, and if you're an agency or a small company that has multiple clients, upgrade to Kalicube Pro. And it really takes it to the next level. And the thing about Kalicube Pro is you don't actually need it. You can do it once again all for free. And we've got a case study where somebody did it for free. And that's fine. But what the Kalicube Pro platform does, and that's the reason it needs to be for agencies, is it simplifies the process, it speeds the process up, and it makes it manageable at scale. So you could manage 100 clients and it wouldn't be a problem. And you couldn't do that manually. So it becomes basically just an organizational tool. But it also provides industry insights. It's got absolutely loads of data. So if you're kind of a little bit geeky, it's going to be really helpful to you. I can't remember where that question started, but I've gone on and on and on, and I do apologize.
Yeah, you can go on and on for as long as you wish. But maybe you can is it possible for you to show us like Kalicube Pro in action? What does it look like? What can we expect?
Yep, I definitely can. What I will do is show my example, because I always do. I don't want to share my clients because obviously, that's all to do with what they call NDAs. I can't remember. Right, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay, I changed. Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
This is the platform. What we do is we create entity groups, which is this menu on the left, and then multiple entities that are all related to each other in here. And what we try to do is build entities in groups. So a family would go together, a company and its CEO would go together, because they mutually support each other. The more I can get Google to understand about me, the more I can get it to understand other related entities, such as my company, but also potentially my mother, my sister, my father, my daughter, my book, my Kalicube Pro SaaS platform here, me as the brand SERP guy. We're trying to do an entity as a pseudonym, or a pseudonym as an entity. And then basically we have this whole thing. You set up the entity here. We can track 5 locations, which is great for the brand SERP, because then you can keep an eye here on what appears when somebody Googles your name. This is mine, across different places.
Okay.
And then the knowledge panel, which is the part that most people are interested in. It's a 6-step process. You go through, you choose the entity home, you write the description. We've got this beautiful, this is lovely, is you write the description, you analyze it using Google's NLP. And when it wants to, I didn't click on the button properly. Oh yeah, there I do. It's just a bit slow. It shows you which entities it's recognized. and what its confidence in each entity is. And there it's recognized me correctly. It's recognized my company correctly. It's recognized my book correctly. And that means really this text here, without any context, Google can completely understand exactly what I'm talking about. And that's the key. This for me is the single most important thing that people underestimate. You can see here, it's recognized that Jason Barnard is a founder, an author, a musician, and an expert. Woohoo! And so
that's nice.
The tool allows you to actually see how Google's understanding this text, and then all of these different related entities. And if you're wondering why some are in blue and some are in black, the blue ones are the ones that it's specifically recognized, and the black ones here are things that it's guessing.
Okay.
And so this is a really good way to understand what is it guessing at. Here, for example, it doesn't understand the brand SERP guy as an entity. It isn't in the knowledge graph. So but from the context, you can guess that the brand SERP guy is a work of art, apparently. And then fundamental facts is just schema markup. People will recognize that. We then take all of the sources that we can find about the entity that Google's looking at for knowledge. I've got 0 because we've classified it. What Kalicube Pro does is it classifies all of the different sources, knowledge sources, and then we get you to double check it, because obviously our algorithms aren't perfect. They get about 80% right, maybe. But we need to be sure, because when we add this stuff to the schema markup, if you add things that are confused or inaccurate, it makes things worse. So here, volume of the number of references that you can put into your schema markup of same as or subject of is not what you're looking for. You're looking for quality and consistency. So you need to go through it manually, and then you add this little snippet here, and it injects the schema markup into the entity home, into one single page, the entity home, where the entity lives in Google's brain online. And if you've already got Yoast or WordLift or Rank Math or Inlinks, this will merge into it, so it becomes part of their schema markup. So we don't create this kind of massive schema markup that a lot of sites have, because we've seen that that confuses Google too. So we're really careful to insert ours on top of theirs or merge it into theirs to make sure that it's all consistent. And then you've got this beautiful list of corroboration. This is mine. And these are all the sources that Google is looking at for knowledge and information about me, factual information. I've got quite a long list because I do a lot of stuff. And you simply go through this entire list and you click on each and every one and you make sure that this is what you want and that the message across the web is consistent. It's as simple as that. That's the entire process for optimizing, managing and triggering a knowledge panel. And it's the same thing all the time. It's consistent information, clear description, and making sure that you're updating this all regularly. And I switched my subtitle from musician to author. And using this list, it took me 3 hours to go through every platform that talked about me and correct them all. And it took 2 weeks for Google to update me from musician to author in the knowledge panel.
Wow. That's
so
nice.
It's incredible. I mean, it's really powerful and it's really simple. I mean, for me, I think it's really simple, but obviously not for everybody. We've got tracking, obviously.
Doesn't seem so simple to me.
Sorry. And with the tracking, you can look at the historical knowledge panel. And if I look here, you can see this is our representation of, I was looking for, it's Paris. In Paris, you can actually see how the knowledge panel is growing. And then if I look at Geo, you can see how different it is across different countries. And the information obviously below. This is a representation of here, for example, in New York, I've got filter pills, I've got people also search for, and I've got my subtitle, but my subtitle isn't showing in Canada, and I don't have people also search for, and I don't have filter pills. So it's a really simple visual way to understand and visualize how your knowledge panel looks. In Italy, I've got my description in the knowledge panel, and it actually comes from my own website. If we look at it down here, I did an Italian version with help from Valentina from WordLift. And if you can see here, Google's taking my description from my website in my knowledge panel.
Wow, This is fascinating.
This is the power of an entity home, because Google recognizes that jasonbarnard.com is where this entity lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it trusts that source because I've been working on it for so long, and I've been consistent, and I've been truthful. So now when I publish this, for example, it is happy to show my own description of myself because it trusts me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There you go. So that's the platform, and I absolutely love it to bits. And there's a whole bit here, which is industry insights. We call them entity equivalents, and it's basically looking at equivalent entities. So same entity type, same geo regions, same industry, and we can map them to you, to the entity you're looking at, and we can tell you what the commonalities are. So we can basically template your brand SERP and template your knowledge panel, so you know exactly what you're aiming for.
Okay.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's geeky, and
it is. I love it.
This is what Karey Gabor wrote, and I won't scroll through the whole thing, because if you can see here on the right-hand side, there you go. Look at that. 25,000 words about Kalicube Pro, about that platform that I just tried to explain in 10 minutes.
Yeah, he is geeky too.
He's wonderful. So there you go. That's the Kalicube Pro platform, and I spend vast amounts of time working on it for clients and trying to improve it and make it better, make it more effective and efficient. And I think effective and efficient are the really key areas for agencies. If you want to impress your client, you need to be effective. If you want to make money, you need to be efficient.
Exactly.
And Kalicube Pro allows you to be effective and efficient with knowledge panels and brand SERPs.
Yeah, and brand SERPs. So I think you're like the only company who provides that. Yeah.
Yep.
I cannot recall anything like that.
Yeah, no, it's totally unique in the world. No other platform does anything even, in my opinion, close to it. I mean, you've got people like WordLift who focus on building internal knowledge graphs, or InLinks who focus on topical authority and topics, or Schema App who focus on building the schema yourself. Which they're all great tools. I love them all. We focus on cleaning up your digital ecosystem and educating Google like it was a child, to ensure that it's understood who you are, what you do, and which audience you serve. And that's what Kalicube does. And the whole thing with the entity home is we only focus on one page on your website. And it's the one page that Google will keep looking to for information about the entity from the entity. And then it just goes out and corroborates, and confirms with all the corroboration that you've gone round and corrected that what you're saying is true. And at that point, it really is so simple getting a knowledge panel and managing it. And the thing that we found is it's now not a question of if we can change information in a knowledge panel, if we can trigger a knowledge panel. It's a question of how long will it take us, and that depends on ambiguity and how much of a mess the entity has made in their digital ecosystem.
Wow. Okay, so I will ask a few maybe more specific questions, because I'm so impressed. Okay, so what's the difference between a knowledge graph and a knowledge panel? Because I guess a lot of people will have that question. What's the difference?
Right. Google's knowledge graph is Google's understanding of the world. It's a machine-readable encyclopedia that Google uses in all of the entity-based algorithms that it's got. And entities are involved in all of their algorithms in the search field, at least anyway now. So the knowledge graph is its understanding of the world, and you can think about that as an understanding of a child or a person, because it functions like a brain. A knowledge graph is simply entities related to other entities, which is actually simply subject, verb, object. So Jason Barnard works for Kalicube. Subject Jason Barnard is the relationship. Verb Kalicube is the object, the other entity. Everything functions like that. It's as simple as that. It really is. And that's what Kalicube does. Is basically it keeps repeating these what we call semantic triples to Google. And in the end, Google understands by pure repetition and pure consistency. And then the knowledge panel is... Sorry, excuse me?
Like a child. Yeah, I like this analogy to a child. Really.
I wouldn't educate my child that way, but brute force of repetition and consistency works with Google, and it's a child that doesn't have emotions, so we don't have to worry about.
I don't have
it's
children, so maybe I don't know how it works.
And then the knowledge panel is the public representation of that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a knowledge panel, then Google is basically saying, here's the facts I've understood, the summary of this entity that I can give you from my understanding from my knowledge graph. So that's the difference. The knowledge graph is the understanding. The knowledge panel is the representation of that understanding.
Mm-hmm. So I have quite, I would say, a limited knowledge about all of this, but I think I read one of your articles, I think on certain journal, it was an article about how to generate a knowledge panel. And I remember there was one thing that you recommended adding, like adding links to your publications from your about page. And this is basically what I did. I embedded all the videos that had like interviews with me. I added same as schema to point to, for example, my publications on some other sites. I think I did all the mentions there. And I don't know if this is the result of that action. I didn't do anything else. I'm not sure if this is like the result, but after some time, I had like this knowledge panel sprout. And can you tell me what it is? What can I do with this now? I think I've had it for a year now, and what should I do?
All right. Okay, great question. Basically, yes, what you did is exactly what Google is looking for. You basically made your about page the entity home. You presented the facts to Google. You also presented it with corroborative information from around the web and pointed it to that corroborative information. And Google said, okay, great. I understand Olga, and everybody else agrees with what she's saying about herself. So it generated a knowledge panel sprout. And a knowledge panel sprout is just a tiny little knowledge panel with potentially your name, maybe a photo, and maybe a subtitle. And that will tend not to appear when somebody searches your name. Sometimes it will, because Google doesn't have enough information, and that information adds no value to what it's already got in the left rail. So if you want it to trigger, you need to build it up to be something bigger with a description, with your date of birth, with your social media profiles, and so on and so forth. And the trick to that is actually just to keep repeating what you've done. Now, I haven't looked at your webpage, but I would guess that Google probably doesn't understand your description of yourself.
Okay.
And that's where the description analysis that I showed you in Kalicube Pro makes all the difference. So what I would suggest is what you've done is what a good SEO would do. And it works absolutely fine. And the trick that you've missed is having a very clear description that works in terms of Google's NLP being able to explicitly understand the information about you. Then the next trick would be to get your company a knowledge panel, link the two together, indicate that relationship. Founder? I'm going to Jason Barnard is founder of Kalicube. I would use. I was going to say Olga, but I can't say your second name. So Olga is the founder of SEO Sly. And if SEO Sly can get a knowledge panel, then you can use each of them to build the other one up little by little like that.
Okay, but should I like set up a separate page on my site about SEO company, or can I just do it all on the about page?
No, that's a great question. No, you can't. Each entity has to have a dedicated entity home. And so even if it's, you kind of think, well, I don't really want a page about my company. For EAT, you need an about page about your company because Google wants to know, and your users want to know, who's behind the website. So you would have an about page about you, an about page about the company. Each is its own entity home, and they would talk about each other, and they would mutually support each other, and then you would corroborate each entity around the web, and your sprout would grow into a blossoming flower, let's say, which is what we did for Jason Hennessy. He had a sprout with a few photos, and we merged that with a couple of other sprouts that Google had duplicated him. In fact, there were 3 of him. And what we simply did was merge the 3 together. Google went, right, it's the same person. And all of that power, all of his online presence and branding and Google's understanding was divided by 3. And as soon as we put them together, it all came together as one. And all his social profiles, you got a description, you got knowledge panel cards, and it blossomed because Google went, right, it's the same person. And you've got these kind of light bulb moments in Google's brain where it goes, "Ooh, I've got it." And that's the moment when Kalicube Pro kind of lights up and all the, all these flashing lights come on and sirens and a big clapping soundtrack because we did it. And if you think about EAT now, this is something I think is really, really important with EAT. Whatever the signals are for expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, if Google explicitly understands who you are in the knowledge graph, it can apply all of those signals fully. If it has to guess using its NLP, so if you think about the screencast from earlier on, if it's got a blue link, it's understood explicitly, EAT signals can be applied fully. If it's guessing and it's the black text, then necessarily those EAT signals will be dampened because it isn't confident. And that confidence that Google has in its understanding about the entity is absolutely key. So you can build all the EAT signals you want. If Google doesn't understand who you are, it doesn't mean anything. And so from your perspective, I would suggest that your next step is to write a brilliant description that clearly states who you are, what you're doing, which audience you serve, in a manner that Google understands who you are explicitly. And we can look at that after the show.
Yeah, and create a page about my company, even though I am the company, basically.
Now, that's another great point. Is I've done it all my life. I can't and a lot of company bosses do that. They can't disassociate themselves with their own company. Even in the case of Kalicube, it was just Jace. It isn't just Jace. It's Kalicube, a company. It's a different entity, and with other entities, the Kalicube team, working for that company. So being able to separate that very clearly in your own mind and expressing that very clearly to Google is incredibly important. I mean, I'll give you another example. Jono Alderson has a company called Jono Alderson Limited. And Google had understood Jono Alderson Limited, the company, but not Jono Alderson, the person.
Oh.
And one of the reasons for that is that Jono wasn't being very clear between the two. And what he then did was clarify, and Google's much, much happier now. So as a solopreneur, I think they're called, you need to be very clear in your mind that although you are a person, that's one entity, even if the company is called, my old company was Jason Barnard, EIRL, which was a solopreneur system, that was a different entity, even though it carried my name.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm learning new things. That's great.
And it's one of the hardest things is to figure out in your own mind, what entities am I talking about? Another example would be Kalicube.com is an entity. That entity is a website. Kalicube is an entity, and that entity is a company. The two are different things. The website represents the company online.
Okay.
The website in and of itself actually isn't important, other than the fact that it's an entity. So you have that idea of inbound links, for example, terribly important in old style SEO. But in entity style SEO, the understanding of Kalicube the company and references to Kalicube the company are the primary focus for me, at least. And links to the website are indirectly applied to the brand, because the links to the website that represents the brand. So from my perspective, links are important. I'm not saying they're not. What I am saying is the most important thing today is to build up Google's understanding of the entity, which is the company and not the website.
Okay. So can you share a few of those things you have in the checklist? Like, what should I do to get a knowledge panel, other than list the things in my on my about page? Like, have the what are like other things you can mention?
Oh, right. That's a difficult question, because remembering all 17 points off the top of my head is simply not going to be possible.
Yeah, so just one or two.
I use my own checklist.
So I will link the checklist.
Yeah, it's coming out in a couple of weeks, almost finished. It's absolutely wonderful. It's a combination of great design by Veronique and Marianne, great presentation, and writing by Katrina and by Elisa. And then the 17 points, which is my contribution, the 17 points all listed down with what exactly you need to do. So basically, you start with identifying the entity home, you write a description, you correct your social media profiles, you correct third-party sites, you correct second-party sites, you add your schema, you
and for the next, people have to wait until it launches.
Oh, brilliant! You're very good at this. I just keep giving everything away. Yes, and download the free PDF, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I can safely say that without saying, "Ooh, look at me, I'm brilliant." It's a brilliant team effort.
Yeah. I have one more question regarding knowledge panels. So I think there is an option to claim a knowledge panel through Google Search Console. Is it like a good idea? Should I be doing that now? All I see is like my photo and my name, and I think it says author. So in my knowledge panel sprout, should I like claim it? How do I do that? Should I do that?
Yeah, right. A knowledge panel sprout is I think claiming a knowledge panel sprout is a tricky business. It depends on the case, but generally speaking, certainly if you can claim it through Search Console, when you click on the claim this knowledge panel and it says claim it through Search Console, or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube are also sometimes options, you can claim it because nobody at Google will look at it. So that's safe. Okay. If you have to fill in that long form where you send your photo and you signed into social media platforms, and it's an incredibly complicated form, somebody at Google will analyze and look at what you're asking for. And if they think your knowledge panel is useless, unclear, unhelpful, or spam, and that's an important concept, knowledge panel spam is a huge problem for Google, they will delete the knowledge panel.
Oh, okay.
So claiming the manual way is something you need to be very careful about. Claiming the automatic way is absolutely fine. And some knowledge panels are simply not claimable. Okay. So if you don't see the claim this knowledge panel, it doesn't necessarily mean somebody else has claimed it. It just means that that knowledge panel is not claimable. And there are multiple reasons for that. And I go into that in the course. And I will go into it in the book because it's too long to explain. There's too many caveats and different things going on.
Sure.
So it's not that I'm hiding the information. The information will be out soon. But there is an FAQ that talks about that as well, how to claim your knowledge panel on kalicube.com. We've actually got an FAQ that explains this. So it is out there and it is free. What was I going to say about the claiming? Oh, yeah, with knowledge panel spam, Google have got a huge team of people behind this. And what you've got is this machine that's been tricked. Somebody's tricked the machine by one of the many spam techniques that I will not share because I don't condone them at all. I sounded like my own teacher from school. Oh dear, how terrible. And they've got a team, and the trick they're playing is basically when you try to claim it, the team looks at it and they delete it. And the deletion is corrective data for the algorithm. It's saying to the algorithm, you were tricked. You got this wrong. And the machine goes, okay, I'll do better next time, sir. And that's incredibly important, which is why, and John Mueller pointed this out to me years ago, sometimes you think, oh, Google's letting lots of really simple spam through. Why on earth are they not just kind of blacklisting this particular site? The reason for that is that they want to teach the machine. So they use that, they keep deleting these things. And after a while, the machine goes, oh, right, okay, that site's spam. And that way, they're not just blacklisting one site. The machine will then be able to see the patterns in that site and understand it when it sees the next spam site that pops up. So if they leave the door open, spammers get in, do their thing, and then Google can gradually teach the machine to spot this. And if you think about the link spam algorithm update from last year, that's exactly what it is. They're patiently waiting their time to help the machine to figure it out. And they said, we don't need Penguin anymore because the machine understands and it can spot the patterns in these spam sites, even though it's never seen them before. That's what machine learning is all about.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And can you like name a few common mistakes people do with knowledge panels? Like, so they submit it to Google to manually review, right?
Yeah. Well, the first mistake is spam. The thing about spam is once Google's been told it was wrong, or the knowledge algorithm has been told by a human being at Google it was wrong, it's going to be much more difficult for you to then recreate that knowledge panel. Because the machine thinks that what it had understood about you was not true. So it's like you've told the child's understood something, and then its teacher has said that's not actually true. Convincing the child that it's true later on is much more difficult. So that's mistake number one. Getting your knowledge panel deleted is a huge mistake because it makes that difficult. Wikipedia, Wikidata, typical mistakes that people create these pages when they're not notable enough. Those pages get deleted. It's the same problem. Google thinks that it's true. Somebody at Wikipedia or Wikidata deletes the page, and that's explicitly telling the child, Google, that it's not true. Recreating a knowledge panel becomes 10 times, 100 times more difficult. Actually, I'd say 10 times. Let's not exaggerate. So those are the two main mistakes that people make. Claiming a knowledge panel too early, which is, as you said, if you claim a sprout and you get a human being to review it, they don't always delete it because it might not be spam, and they might think, oh, that's going to grow into a huge blossoming flower, and that's wonderful. But you're asking a human being who knows nothing about you and who has 10 seconds to make the decision.
Yeah.
Because Google don't give these people much time. So they're just going to go, oh, Olga, look at that. Doesn't look good. Click, delete. Oof, gone.
Oh, done.
And they're not going to investigate to figure out who you are. They're not going to investigate to see exactly how you did it. It's going to be a snap judgment to teach the machine.
Okay.
So if you can claim it automatically through Search Console, go ahead. If you've got to go through a human being at Google, be careful.
Okay, so I'll do it just using Google Search Console.
Yeah. But if you've got Google Search Console coming up as an option, that means Google's recognized your entity home.
Yeah, I have that
which
option.
Means that you're in a hugely, hugely powerful situation. Because once it's understood your entity home and it's accepted it, you can start teaching the child from that entity home. You become its parent. You become the educating parent. And then the parent, as a parent, you say, here are the facts, here's the information, here's my audience, here's what I want you to know. Now go and check it with the school teacher, check it with grandma, check it with, the policewoman down the road or whatever. And so the child is then coming to you for information and then going out and checking that information with third parties. And that's hugely powerful. That gives you control.
Okay. So one more question.
I suddenly sound very serious. I'm more and more sounding like my old school teacher at school, who I absolutely hated.
Oh, I'm learning so many things. If women often change surnames, so let's say I am like a well-known SEO and I changed my surname, what should I do? Like, I won't be able to probably change that surname on all the publications I've done. So I can only change it on my website, on social media. Will that be enough for Google to kind of now understand that I'm now like called in a different way?
Yeah, it is a hugely interesting question. And one thing you need to do, you change your name, but then you can add alternate names to your schema.
Oh, okay.
So you can actually add the previous name to your schema. It's basically a rebranding exercise, which sounds horrible from a marriage perspective, but it's rebranding. And then I would use Kalicube Pro, but in fact, you can do it manually. You find all the sources that talk about you. Elisa did a manual check, and it took her 12 hours.
Oh.
And with Kalicube Pro, it took her about an hour.
Okay. Yeah.
To find them all and classify them all and get them all sorted out. So if you want to do it manually, go ahead. It'll take you 12 hours.
I won't.
It's really boring. It's so boring. And then you go round and you correct as many as you can. You change the schema markup on your page, on your entity home, saying this is the current name, this is the alternate name, which is the previous name. And you write a description where it's incredibly clear that these two people are one and the same. If you've got a Wikidata page, you can change that information there. That's a legitimate change that the editors probably won't do anything about. So people who are scared of having something deleted on Wikidata, that's the kind of change that is reasonable. But always provide supporting evidence, whether it's for Google or Wikidata, or in fact, the human beings at Google with the feedback button and the knowledge panel, they don't know you. they don't have any context. So you need to provide third-party links that corroborate what you're saying. Maybe one, maybe two, maybe three if you've got them, but certainly never without any corroborating information, whether it's to Google, to Wikidata, or on your schema markup. Corroborate everything always. And then the interesting question about the articles that you cannot change is that you could argue you should not change it, because at that point in time your name was
it was correct, right?
So the trick there is simply to explain to Google that it's a synonym. At which point you kind of say, well, I can leave that name because all I need to do is convince Google or educate Google rather to the fact that the two names are actually the same person. And once it's understood that, there is absolutely no problem.
Okay, so it's not that scary.
Oh, not at all. No.
As I thought it might be. Yeah.
No, it's a question of being consistent with everything you control. And you can also potentially create using schema markup, if you're a bit geeky, create a timeline so that it can understand where you were or when the name changed. So I mean, potentially you could use role and then have different jobs and have the name change at one of the jobs. That would be one potential. I mean, it's an idea. I don't know. I've never tried it. But instinctively, that seems to me to be a good way to create a timeline for Google in its brain, and it will see at what point that name changed.
Okay, yeah, that's very, very useful advice. Thanks. I
think are you thinking about getting married, or is that a terribly personal question?
Yeah, I'm already married. Yeah, I
right.
was just thinking.
Oh, right. Yeah. So you're wondering about whether you should change your name, or is it already changed?
No, I haven't changed my name, and I was thinking that maybe if I decide to change it in the future, what should I do? And because I haven't changed my surname because of like running reasons, because I used to be a bit not famous. Famous is too much, but kind of well known in running. And I was like, I didn't want to change my name, and I didn't, but I think I won't. Because when I was thinking about SEO, then I thought, oh no, I will never do that. But now it seems like not such a scary thing after all.
I think it's absolutely manageable. I mean, I'll come back to that. I think it's not a question of if we can get Google to understand this. It's a question of how long it will take us.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting kind of point. I'm sure we're coming up to the end of the time here because we're at 57 minutes. But
yeah,
I think it's really important to bear in mind the time frame you're looking at. People think, oh, I can just change a couple of things. People often think I can just put schema markup on my webpage and everything's good. And it seems to me strange that people in SEO will say to their clients, you have to give us 2 years to get this running, and yet think that educating this algorithm, the knowledge algorithm, which is foundational to Google's future, would be as simple as just adding schema markup to your site. Yeah. It's the same thing, is that you need to work and you need a strategy. It's not just a question of putting schema markup on your web page, and you need to be realistic in terms of time frame. And at Kalicube, what we've seen is that we can generally get a knowledge panel sprout or reasonable sprout within about 3 months. It takes about 6 months for that sprout to then turn up on the brand SERP if we work hard at it. And then it takes another 6 months for us to stabilize it to the point at which it won't disappear on the next Google knowledge algorithm update. And we track the knowledge algorithm updates on Kalicube. There are 4 different ways of tracking it. We track them all. And what will happen with the knowledge updates is that knowledge panels disappear, knowledge graph references disappear. It's a big shakeup. It's like a normal Google algorithm update. It shakes everything up. And
I just wanted to ask if
really careful.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to ask if those knowledge panel updates kind of coincide with Google core updates, or do they like influence one another, or are they like completely separate?
Right. Yeah. I'll just so it's a year to get any kind of stability, and then I would argue you need to keep managing it over time, because what happens is your digital ecosystem changes over time. Google's algorithms evolve over time, and the features Google has in Knowledge Panel evolve and change. And if you're ready for the features, you get them. We got Knowledge Panel cows for Jason Hennessy because we were ready. We got them for me because I was ready. If I hadn't been ready, I wouldn't have got them. So my argument is you should always be tracking and you should always be improving. You should always be working on it. It's not a daily task, but it's certainly something you've got to keep an eye on. And if something goes wrong, if your knowledge panel disappears, if you're not tracking it, you won't know when it disappeared. And so you won't be able to investigate why it disappeared. And what we've got at Kalicube, obviously, is we can see the exact moment it disappeared, and then we can look at the information around the web and figure out what happened, what went wrong, and correct it and get the knowledge panel back. And to your question, which I've already forgotten.
Wait a second. What was the question?
You've got it too. It was a great question as well.
Yeah, oh, no. Yeah, I know. If those core, are you like short of time?
No, not at all.
Yeah, the question was: is if Google core updates coincide with, are they like connected?
In fact, historically, I've been tracking them for 7 or 8 years now, and working on them for 10. But have you ever heard the theory about AC/DC records and economic slumps?
I think I have. Yeah.
Right, because I was an economist, and it's a story in the economist world, is that when there's an economic boom, AC/DC sell very few records, and when there's an economic slump, AC/DC sell boatloads of records. And that's because when there's a slump, people want cheering up, and AC/DC cheers them up. And when there's a boom, they don't need cheering up, so they don't buy AC/DC records.
Okay.
And it's this kind of inverse wave where you've got when one's up, the other one's down, and vice versa. And it was the same with these algorithm updates. You would not ever see a knowledge algorithm update at the same time as a blue link or a general update.
Okay.
And this year, that's changed. They started to sync.
Okay.
Not always, obviously, but sometimes you will see them sync, and not sync as in go down, as in synchronize.
Yeah.
And there was an update in April, and then in one of the knowledge algorithms, and there wasn't one again until last week, so 6 months. And and you'll notice there were a lot of updates around SEO during that period. So Google, because knowledge is so ingrained or increasingly ingrained in the needs of their future algorithms across the board, they've really got to be careful about to what extent and how they integrate the knowledge and the knowledge algorithms into the general algorithms. And so you have this situation, whereas if you're going to shake up the blue links, don't shake up the knowledge at the same time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to shake them up a bit at the same time. And that happens from time to time. But the shake-ups in the knowledge section are generally very small when you see a major shake-up in the blue links section.
Okay, that's good to know.
I spend my life looking at these graphs and trying to figure it all out. Publicly, we share one measurement of knowledge graph updates, but internally, we've got 4 different measurements that we use. And so the 6-month period was actually just the knowledge graph itself in terms of the confidence scores moving around. But internally, we saw multiple other updates. For example, in June, the knowledge graph got much deeper.
Wow.
And it didn't get more information added to it, but it joined up more dots. And this is interesting if you're a bit geeky, is that generally speaking, the knowledge graph is full of entities and relationships between those entities. And it seems to me, and I don't have any data proof for this, Google is in June started to look at associations. And if you think about the child, it's really interesting, because the child, you say to the child, mother, daughter relationship, right? Simple. You say to the child, what do you think of if I say bunny rabbit? And the child says, orange potatoes. And you go, what? That doesn't make sense. There isn't a relationship, but for the child, there's an association because at some point once they saw a cartoon with an orange potato and a bunny rabbit in it. And these associations, I'm really curious about them. What are the associations? Why is it making the associations? And how much do these associations affect the algorithms and the way Google's presenting us in knowledge panels, and even in the left rail with those recommendations that it's got? But that's a huge question that I don't have the answer to.
Yeah. Okay. So
you wish you hadn't asked now, don't you?
No. Now it's time for you to kind of plug whatever you want people to do. So join the academy, join the course. I will provide all the links.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you're just getting into brand SERPs and knowledge panels, read the book. It's cheap. It's from Amazon. It's cheap and cheerful, but quite informative. Pardon me?
I just wanted to say I love it. I recommend it. I was one of the first people, I think, who was able to read it. So I bought it right after it was published.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
You gave a great review as well, I remember. Yeah. So the book's a really good introduction. The courses are the next step up if you really want to start geeking out. And once you've really started geeking out, if you're an agency, come onto the platform. We also have a Kalicube Knowledge Panel and Brand SERP support group on Facebook. You're welcome to come and join that. And the idea of that is that I share stuff there that I don't share elsewhere. And also other people, really smart people, come into the group and share what they know. We've got a guy called DC Glenn, who's Wikipedia king of the world, and who's done an amazing job. He was an 80s rap star. And he's been moving all of the information that's offline, online, in order to manage his knowledge panel. That's genius.
Wow.
And a guy called Josh King, who's got the most confusing digital ecosystem you've ever imagined. And he has got his confidence score in the knowledge graph to go from, I think it was 10 to 43,000 using Kalicube Pro. And it only took him about 2 months. And that's the moment when I'm saying some other people are going to use this tool better than I do. And it's kind of disappointing in one sense, but it's so pleasing in another, is that other people can take what I've built and use it much better than I can. And that's absolutely glorious.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and that was it. I think that's all I was going to plug. Listen to my podcast, search my name, Jason Barnard, on Google. And the other thing about your brand SERP, and this is maybe a good way to finish it, is that when you search somebody's name, Google is suggesting how you might want to interact with them in the left rail. So you get to choose Twitter, LinkedIn, my site, my company site, my videos, my articles. And on the right-hand side, it will give you a summary of who I am and what I do and what information might be important to you. And the aim of a knowledge panel is to save you the time of going to all of those sites individually, finding that information to figure out who I am.
Yeah, that's perfect.
It's Google's summary of who I am, who you are. Your summary is quite small, but I'm absolutely sure with very little effort, you can build that up with a description, the social media, and make a blossoming knowledge panel.
Okay, so to find Jason Barnard, just type his name and and choose the way you want to interact.
Brilliant. So, wonderful. Jason, thank you so much, Olga.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored that you wanted to spend this hour with me, and I learned so much. So and I think my audience will learn so much as well. So thank you again.
Brilliant. Well, I'm honored to be invited, and I'm absolutely stunned that you would be willing to listen to me for 1 hour and 8 minutes.
Of course. So once again, thank you, and see you in the next episode. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye bye.